You might want to slow down. He'll know that in case.
He's just here.
Yeah, JCCC. I'd follow on that board now. Yeah, I just went out there and asked him a little more up here.
Back up to the heat.
Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started tonight.
Jacobs,
Here.
Lund,
Here.
Watts,
Here.
Allen, here, Johnston.
Here. Okay, approval of the minutes.
Move to approve. Jacobs,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Johnston.
Abstain. And adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt.
Jacobs,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes. Okay, and then we have a presentation. All right, and if I could get Officer Katz, Officer Walker, Colonel Parvin, Major Carlton, just says retired Marine, Kelly Murphy, and then Mr. Wasson and Mr. Wilkinson up front. Closer? Is this the kind where we squat down?
Well, not quite squat, but a swish.
Okay, so pretty cool story happened. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about it. This did come from Chief Lockhart. I wasn't there at the time because I can't handle CrossFit. Okay, tried it, been there. It's pretty tough. So, pretty neat story here. On May 11th, 2018, Lance Wilkinson was working at a CrossFit Believe in Warrensburg when he collapsed. His fellow CrossFit athletes, United States Air Force pilots, Lieutenant Colonel Jeremiah Parvin, Major Chad Carlton, retired Marine Kelly Murphy, and Eric Wasson took charge of the scene. These men worked together, directing someone to call 911, another person to make room in the parking lot for the ambulance, and someone to call Mr. Wilkinson's wife. Parvin and Carlton took turns performing rescue breaths while Murphy performed chest compressions. Officer Ronnie Katz and Officer Eric Walker were dispatched to the call when they arrived. They connected their automatic electronic defibrillator to Mr. Wilkinson and continued CPR until the ambulance crew arrived. Medical staff and the actions of all involved contributed to saving Mr. Wilkinson's life. For their life-saving actions, I am pleased to present, on behalf of the city and the police department, the Life-Saving Award to Officer Ronnie Katz and Officer Eric Walker. I also want to, yes. All right. Officer Katz. Thank you, sir. And Officer Walker. Thank you. I also want to commend publicly the actions of Lieutenant Colonel Jeremiah Parvin, Major Chad Carlton, retired Marine Kelly Murphy, and Eric Wasson, who together rendered first aid helping save Mr. Wilkinson's life. Community members like these men are what make Warrensburg a great community. And I read this off a sheet, but I fully believe this. This is a pretty amazing community because of people like this.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we are going to go into the presentation of 2018 Wage and Benefit Report.
Mayor and members of the City Council, for the last 4 months or so, we have had the privilege of working with the Austin Peters Group. And tonight we have President of the Austin Peters Group, Rebecca Crowder, here to make the presentation which we and them have been working so hard at the last 4 or 5 months. So.
Good evening. I don't know if you all can hear me. I'm pretty short. I didn't get instructions about my, is it forward and back? Oh, sweet. Very nice. Okay, it's a pleasure to be here. My name's Rebecca Crowder. I'm with the Austin Peters Group out of Overland Park, Kansas. We have been working, as Greg mentioned, on a classification compensation study to include looking at wages and benefits for the city's positions. We're at the end of that process. It has been a very time-intensive, dedicated process by lots of people. I want to especially recognize the city manager, your finance director, your human resource director, your department heads, your employee committee that helped us along the way, all of your employees, everybody. It was a team effort from the start to the finish to get the project underway, off the ground, and then get the recommendations put together. So I want to thank all of them especially. And thank you for having me here tonight. On my agenda here, I've got just 5 items I'd like to talk about. First, I'd like to talk about introductions. Then I want to talk just really quickly about our project scope. Then I'd like to talk about our findings. And then I want to talk about proposed timeline, and then most importantly, I want to take questions from you all and hear what you might be on your minds, or if you have anything you'd like me to address. A little bit about us. We have done over 120 studies like this. I'm a Mizzou MPA graduate, K-State undergraduate. The other consultant in the firm is an urban planning master's degree graduate. So lots of experience. I've worked in cities myself, in county government, and all of that was very helpful knowledge to bring together toward the project. So we have a lot of experience, and one reason that cities select us for projects like this is we have a 99% implementation rate. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is a team effort from not only your department heads, but your employees and employee committee and things like that. So it's a full process that involves everybody, and that's why I believe that projects like this, we did involve everyone. That's why I think we're successful in getting our recommendations put together for you to consider. Let me just kind of talk about the process here. On the left, we have what we call internal equity. And we look at all of your positions in the city, and we do that because sometimes when we go to the market and look at what the market pays for different positions, we may not find every single position that you have, or it doesn't help us with internal equity. So we consider things that you see on the left here, things like whether people are in supervisory roles, what kinds of decision making they have, what kinds of budget responsibility, what kinds of customer interaction they might have, what kinds of working conditions, physical conditions the positions might have. That helps us establish for all the positions in the city a ranking and a scoring of all those jobs. And we score those from highest to lowest, so that helps us evaluate where to place jobs if we're unsure about the market results or unclear about something. So that's very helpful. All of your positions went through that process. Employees were involved in that, and department heads as well. The second, the middle part of the screen here talks about external equity. We did have a very, very strong response rate to our market survey. A lot of that has to do with you have a team that knows people in other communities. It was well received. We got lots of participation. So we had a very strong market survey, the external part. The third part here, we revised and rewrote and developed where you didn't have job descriptions. And that was quite an effort. There was a lot of paper flying back and forth and emails and things like that, but we finally got it all organized and got a product back to you that's uniform, that considers things like working conditions, physical conditions, ADA, those kinds of things. So all of that got done. Those are the three pieces of that part of the process in terms of what we considered. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is there was a lot of employee involvement. Every employee that's in this room either filled out a survey or participated with somebody else to work as a team in filling out surveys and documenting for us all types of activities. So they helped us with surveys, they helped us with interviews. We interviewed all of them by position or by group, had different appointments and time schedules for people with shift work. So that was very helpful. They were a very important part of that. Department heads reviewed all of our work that we then compiled and put together. And then of course, the executive team reviewed all of that work. And then when we got all the way to the final stages of the process, we asked to meet with the employee committee so that we could talk with them ahead of time before we went to the employees and before we came to you to see what kinds of concerns, questions that they might have. We educated them in the process so that they could answer questions right alongside department heads. And I think that's a very important piece of the process as well. I'm going to have to look at my handout that talks about who was in the study. I apologize, I can't see that far, but I'll get there. So when we do a study like this, there are lots of different factors to think about. The first thing that we were thinking about, because we are in Overland Park, we know how easy it is for you all to commute right into Lee Summit, Kansas City. So that was one thing we were thinking about, was it's easy in terms of commuting. A lot of people do that. So we wanted to choose some communities who had a similar easy commuting distance like you. So you'll see some in here. The other thing that we wanted to do was choose communities your size or that might have similar influences. So you'll see in here that we have a couple other college towns that we focused on in our survey list. We mostly stuck to Missouri communities. Either they were on the surrounding edge of Kansas City, or they were like you in some other way, or they were surrounding edge in terms of St. Louis. So the group that we surveyed here, we've got the city of Arnold, we've got Belton right up the road, we have Cape Girardeau, we have Creve Coeur, Farmington, Gardner, Kansas, Gladstone, Grain Valley, Grandview, Harrisonville, Kirksville, Lee Summit, Liberty, Maryville, Missouri, Nixa, Pittsburgh, Kansas, Raymore, Missouri, Rolla, Sedalia, and Washington, Missouri. So one thing that you all probably notice right away is some of those communities are wealthier and some might be not as wealthy as Warrensburg. So we took all of their data, their raw data, and for example, Lee Summit's a good example, where they might be paying significantly more in a position or their ranges might be significantly more. We adjusted their wages for what it costs to be right here in your county. So we would adjust those wages downward to match what it costs right here. That way we could use their data. And there are other communities where we adjusted it the opposite way, to adjust it upward to meet what the cost is here. So we had all of these communities, that's a very strong response rate, who helped us with wages, helped us with ranges, helped us with the benefit survey piece as well. So that's who was in the group. When we got all of our findings put together, what we found was that when we looked at your employees and your wages and your pay ranges, we found that there were 6 employers that paid more than you in the market out of that group after we adjusted for the cost of living by those communities, and 4 of them paid less than you. Well, our experience is that if you are below the middle of the market, you will continue to have things like turnover, challenges in number of applications that you receive in all kinds of positions, and that you don't have the qualifications and the pool of applicants that you really want. that once we can get a city or a community up to the middle of the market, we're making progress. And if we can go even higher than the middle, that's even better. But we had to be pragmatic. We at least needed to get you guys to the middle of the market because we know that that will help with retention and attraction of quality candidates for positions. So just to recap that, 6 employers paid more than you and 4 paid less than you. And with the findings, this would move you up to the middle where 5 would pay more and 5 would pay less. So it gets you right in the middle of that market. The cost to do that is $390,000 just to base wages. That doesn't account for overtime or fringes. Matthew tells me that it's more, and the staff tells me it's more like $500,000 when we account for all of those things. The second finding, and I have to attribute this to great leadership on your part. Sometimes communities will say to us, go move the ranges, but don't do anything with employees. And of course, if you move a range up and you have an employee who's right at the bottom of the range, they maybe have 5 years of service, and you've just moved the range up to them. And then you're hiring new people in right where they are. So what your management team directed us to do is whatever you move the range by, that you need to move employees by that same across the board amount so that we remain competitive, so that we don't lose those employees to other employers. And I've got an example. So if police officer ranges move by 2.4%, all police officers would receive a 2.4% across the board adjustment. So that's finding number 2. Finding number 3, now that your ranges are competitive and in alignment with the middle of the market, we want you to keep moving them. Don't stop, and we will help you every year. We subscribe to different services that'll tell us for the Kansas City metro area, what are the ranges moving by, what does the budget look like, tell us what those numbers are, and we'll communicate with your staff about those. Finding number 4. You all have done some remarkable things in your fringe benefit package with your employees, and there are some items where you're ahead of the peer group, and there are some items where you're a touch behind. But once we looked at the whole of the picture, we felt like no adjustment in any of those items at this point. But it's good information for you guys to have, so that going forward, if you want to consider adding or changing, you have data on what that looks like. Okay. And then the anticipated timeline. So we got to meet with the employees in May, the employee committee in May. We're here tonight, I'm here tonight to talk with you all, meet with you. And then I think the plan, if you all approve, would be to roll it into the budget and get the ranges adjusted and the employees adjusted within that January 1, 2019 would be the plan. So lastly, how about questions from you all?
I do want to highlight a couple more changes that are taking place in this. It's a pretty comprehensive change. We went into it focusing on making sure our wages are competitive and those types of things, but while we're looking at it, we took some time to try and fix some other things as well. One of the big ones being compression issues. So over time, things kind of got out of balance. And by compression issues, I mean separation between different levels of responsibility of employees. And so Austin Peters has gone out and compared that to these same communities to make sure that we're matching separation-wise between those positions as well. When those get a little tight, sometimes we have a hard time advancing people because they're not making that much more money than what they were already making in their current position. They're adding responsibility and skill sets, but it's not being reflected in their change of pay. And that was an issue that I was hearing from employees that was a significant concern. And so this study also changes that and adjusts that and fixes that for us. The other one is that before this study, we didn't have salary ranges for department heads. It was just kind of a negotiated basis. And one of the changes I made here was the department heads get treated the same as all the other employees. We have a salary range that's compared as part of the market study. That helps make sure that we're paying, our department has a competitive rate, but we're not overpaying them also. And probably perhaps the biggest improvement I see here is when I came into the city manager, there was a lot of frustration with our STEP program. Where STEP program is basically based off of the federal model. Okay, when you complete a year and you're successful in doing that, regardless of your performance, you get the same pay increase. And in our situation, I think originally when it was designed, it was meant to be like a 15 or 16 step program. I think the city probably ran into some financial straits several years ago, and they changed it to a 32-step program. Well, what that means is it takes you 32 years to go from the entry level of the pay range to get to the top of the pay range, which in my opinion was kind of ridiculous. And so we switched all positions now to a pay range, and we're going to transition to performance-based pay, which means every year management and supervisors will sit down and have a communication session and a goal setting session with their employees and set how they're going to be evaluated for the next year for their performance. And then their pay increase the next year will be based off of how well they do that. They'll be scored based off of that performance evaluation. And then now the employee has the ability to control how quickly they move to that pay range based on how they perform. So good performers get higher pay increases, lower performers or average performers get a lower or average increase. And I think that will improve our retention of employees and satisfaction of employees throughout. And department heads will be subject to that same personnel evaluation format also. And then finally, I just wanted to state, she talked about we're at the 40th percentile right now in comparison. This adjustment that's recommended now is to get us to the 50th percentile. At some point in the future, I don't know how soon that will be, I would like the council to consider moving us to the 60th percentile when we can afford to do that. So we're paying a little bit better than average, we're getting better quality applications of employees, and we're having better retention of our quality employees that we already have at some point in the future. This year, we just don't have the financial ability to do that. But at some point in the future, hopefully as progress continues and revenues come in better, we can again divert some of that money to improving our employment situation and pay with our employees. So I just wanted to highlight those key changes in here too, that were also incorporated with this whole change. So this is a pretty comprehensive change that we're implementing here. And again, I try to err on the side of having the employees involved. They understood, we opened up all the information to them. All the data, all the statistics, everything. And I always try to err on the side of giving them all the information. I didn't want to hold anything back. So we're also trying to improve communication between management and the employees through this process also. And so far I think it's been well received. It is a big commitment. One of the things we try to stress to employees, this isn't a one-time fix. This isn't just $390,000 on this fiscal year. This is an ongoing $390,000 a year. It affects loggers, our state retirement system. It affects FICA taxes. It trickles out through everything, which is why $390,000 in base wages, but $500,000. But that's an ongoing, reoccurring expense every year. So this is a huge commitment from the city. At this point, and this is a priority I've made to the department heads, is to implement this plan and recommendation fully within this fiscal year. And that has been a goal and objective. The department heads have done a good job on trying to make that work in our budget this year. So anyway, I'll leave it for council to ask any questions at that point, but I wanted to highlight some of those other key elements with this.
I have a couple. One is, how does the city stack up? We're beginning to see an influx of new businesses to the community. How does the city stack up locally with those businesses?
So we had some Bureau of Labor Statistics data. So once we got all the way done, we were cross-checking our numbers against what we were seeing in that data set just to make sure we were on track. You're behind. The biggest impact to these numbers are on the lower level of it, and that's where you're the farthest behind. It's those entry levels where you have lots of people in those positions. And so this really reflects an adjustment to get them to the middle and then try, as Harold said, to move ahead even further.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. The other thing is on the job performance evaluations, how far down into each department does that reporting official go? I mean, is it left to the department heads to evaluate all of their people, or how far down will we go to receive performance reports on the employees?
It'll depend on the department. I mean, like a police department's gonna handle that differently than a finance department.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm assuming the finance department, Matthew's probably gonna do all those evaluations. Versus in the police department, some of that may be delegated down to the lieutenants or the sergeants. to
Okay.
do. But we do wanna maintain consistency, so we
Right.
have the same form. And so what'll happen is that supervisor will sit down with that employee, and we plan on doing this fall. Sit down and go over the evaluation form. So we use the same evaluation form for every single employee. But there'll be different categories of performance that are measured in there, and that'll be weighted differently for each employee, depending on the conversation that employee has with their supervisor. So for example, one of the elements for weight within the performance evaluation will be customer service,
Okay.
dealing with the public. Well, a front desk person who handles our sewer collections at the front desk has a lot of hands-on customer service related stuff versus maybe someone on our street crew in our street department who's running bobcats and those types of things. They may have less. So in that situation, the customer service piece will be weighted higher in their evaluation on a finance employee than it will be versus a street employee who's running equipment. But they may have higher on skill sets and those types of things. But then that employee will know what they're gonna be evaluated on for that next 12-month period. They'll sign off on that. And then a minimum of probably every 6 months, there'll be a meeting with the supervisor to talk about how you're doing. This is also meant to be a tool to drive management to have regular communication with their employees on how things are going and be there to help them be successful, not just give them a form and come back a year later and say, well, here's what we're gonna grade you on, and this is what it is now. We want to be there as management to help these employees succeed and improve and become better and reward them for doing that. But basically, when you sit down on those evaluations, that same sheet's going to be pulled out, and they're going to review through those goals and those objectives and how we're doing in each area, and really try to drive the organization to excel and be better through that. So again, it's a long-winded answer to your question, I guess, but it'll depend on the department and based on the hierarchy and the structure and that of who is appropriate to do that. But I've also told the employees and the department heads that I want consistency with this. And I've even told department heads that part of their performance evaluation will be how well they've executed the evaluations within their own department.
Okay.
The other thing too is that I will review every performance evaluation of every employee. And if there's any anomalies out of there, we're gonna have a conversation with that department head on why is that. You know, if I have someone who comes in with a rating of a 5 across the board, we're gonna have a conversation of, well, tell me about this employee who's so stellar and so perfect that he's getting a 5 on everything. But the same will be true if I have an employee that's getting 1s and 2s. We're gonna have a conversation, because I wanna make sure there's consistency so we don't have basically favoritism being played where I like this employee, but I don't like this employee. And that's reflected in the evaluation, even though they're doing the same job and performing the same way.
I guess that's probably what's driving my concern is,
I'm
say,
having the same concern.
fire
We both have the same background, so.
fire department or police department, where we have different levels of supervision, but they will be evaluating people that are doing the same job.
I don't think anyone will ever be evaluating people doing the same job. It'll be in your command report where somebody's supervising, 4 or 5 people below them. So
Well,
a
no.
police sergeant may be.
They wouldn't be doing the same job as a reporting official. That's not, no, I misstated that probably. But you would have maybe 2 sergeants reporting on a group of people that are doing the same job. Each sergeant may have 4 people reporting. He would report on 4 and he would report on 4. How are we to ensure that these guys are using the same judgment in reporting so that one group doesn't get scored lower than the other? I mean, are we instituting some training or?
So they're doing a significant amount of training.
Okay, yes.
Leading up to this fall, with the supervisors, with the department heads, because we do want to maintain consistency. We want it to be fair.
Okay.
We don't want favoritism.
No, that's,
And
yeah,
those types of things.
okay. All right.
In looking at the data-based annual adjustments, are those generally across the board, or do you break those up into segments or departments or even individual positions?
So the answer is yes, yes, and yes. I hate to say it like that. We'll give you a report that tells you what the pay ranges are moving by for this area and what merit and performance is moving by for this area. And then there'll be a list within that that says, these positions are really hot in the market right now and these are not. Just so that every year they can be fully informed about which ones are moving faster than others so that we can take that into account. So a little bit of all of that.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Looks like next we have budget requests from boards, commissions, and contract agencies.
Mayor, members of the city council, each year as part of the budget process, we ask contract agencies, boards, and commissions to come and present their request to council. With council's approval, staff will incorporate these requests into the budget. In fiscal year 18, the city funded around $177,000 to these different organizations, and so far for the FY19, we have about $170,000 requested. We have several representatives of these agencies, boards, and commissions here tonight, and I think we'll just start from the top. And I'll ask if anyone is here from Big Brothers Big Sisters. Their request was for $5,600, and this is the same as last year. There was no change in their contract. Chamber of Commerce. That one was basically a,
Suzanne's here.
sorry.
On Bergfest, did you just skip that individually?
Yeah, for Bergfest, I think we're gonna, when we have when Main Street comes up,
Okay.
we'll talk about Bergfest.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I didn't prepare a presentation, but the invitation to be a sponsor with the Chamber of Commerce stands at the same as it was last year. Our fiscal year begins on 1st of October, and the proposal and the invitation is for a $5,000 sponsorship, which will include 15 memberships for your heads of department. That is what we currently have, as well as 15 networking tickets and brand recognition in our printed material and our online material. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Diversity and Inclusion Commission, we have
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Erica Collins. I'm here tonight to represent the Diversity and Inclusion Commission. We are super excited about the commission and about the opportunity to set forth and do exactly what we said we would do, which is to educate and to support and to make Warrensburg a better place. This evening we are asking for a budget of $1,500. We will use those funds as we support others in their events, and we intend to be at get the read out, and some other community events. And we'll be purchasing some educational materials that we'll be using at schools, at our own events, and at other people's events. Any questions?
Will you be giving that money away as like?
No, we will
for
not be
events, or-
giving,
okay.
no, we will be using that money to purchase items for the events. So we have some items that we want to buy. There's some literature that we'd like to buy. There's a couple documentaries that we'd like to buy, and we'll be showing those at various times throughout the year. Of course, everybody likes swag, so we wanted to get the word out about diversity and inclusion, and so we'll be purchasing some items that have our logo and our name on them.
All right.
Thank you.
JCCC.
For those of you that know me well, you know that it's probably better for me to not shoot off the cuff. So I have a.
I was headed that way, just for that purpose.
That's right. Yeah. And Tracy does have what I am going to read here. Anyway, my name is Drew Lewis. I'm president of Johnson County Economic Development Corporation. And I just wanted to thank you very much for the opportunity to sit before you. And just thank you for your long time support. In 2006, the Warrensburg Area Economic Development Corporation became the Johnson County Economic Development Corporation. And since then, we have led major projects like the intersystem expansion in 2008, Janesville in 2013, and of course Dollar Tree in 2017. Those three projects alone will create over 800 jobs and $163 million in investment in Warrensburg. JCCC has also worked to designate the enhanced enterprise zone and opportunity zones in Warrensburg. In addition to the major projects mentioned, JCCC continues to assist with small businesses, infrastructure development, grant writing, community development, microloans, things of that nature, and more have positively affected the economic health of Warrensburg. This year, we hired 80 Advantage, a well-known economic development consulting firm, which gave us tons of community data and information for the Johnson County Plan for Growth. We would like to thank those of you in the room that contributed to that, along with the 80 team. And in July, next month, we expect to have their final results of that, and including a targeted industry analysis, a talent assessment, and other organizational strategies for success for our community going forward. As you know, there is never a finish line in economic development, and so we are asking for $75,000, which is the same that you had provided in the past since 2006, for the year 2018 and 19. And we are again requesting that same amount. And obviously, the city of Warrensburg has been a huge supporter of us. We thank you for that very much. Your contribution will expand the ability to properly implement what we are able to do. And then all of us as communities work together to build a stronger Johnson County. So we thank you very much. And we are asking for that same amount again. Thank you. Questions?
Out of curiosity, do the other communities also contribute?
Yes, we actually have and additional support from the neighboring communities. We've actually reached out to those communities and made some pretty great inroads to we're getting more support from those, including the fact that the mayor of the city of Mount Master is sitting in the room tonight, which is pretty awesome. And so he sits through enough city council meetings as it is. And so that's pretty awesome that he'd be willing to support and show support for Johnson County economic development. So thank you.
Thanks for that.
Oats. Tracy.
I was hoping I didn't have to follow that level of excitement. I'm Tracy Walkup. I'm here representing Oats in the Midwest region. We cover 13 counties in this region, which includes the city of Warrensburg. We have been providing transportation with the city of Warrensburg for approximately 20 years now. And I'm coming to you tonight with the same request that I had last year and the year before. We're requesting $15,000 to help subsidize the services here. And let me just kind of give you a brief idea of where we're at for the year this year. We are in just about to end our 12th month of our fiscal year, so I have 11 months worth of data. So far, in the city of Warrensburg, we've provided approximately 20,000 trips this year. Of those 20,000 trips, 7,564 were subsidized by the city of Warrensburg with no other funding source involved. And so your $15,000 goes a long ways toward providing transportation to your citizens. Just a few brief numbers. Employment, we transported over 5,000 trips for employment during the past fiscal year. With our contract with Care Connection, we transported 600 plus trips to the Senior Center for meals. We have recreational trips that we provide. We also provide Head Start transportation in town, and we've provided over 6,000 trips for Head Start this year. On top of everything that we do for people for education and for fun, we also provide medical transportation. We've provided almost 5,000 medical trips this year, and we continue to grow year after year. When I first took over this position 15 years ago, we had one bus that ran here in town. That was the old drum bus. It would deviate off route to pick up people when they called in. About 5 years ago, I came before the council and I said, it's time we have to grow. And so I said, I'm going to add another bus so that we can take away some of those deviations. Tomorrow, we're going to have 5 buses running here in town at the same time, because we have grown so exponentially in the service that we're providing here to the citizens. And I thank you for your support. Questions? Yes? You know what? I sit right on the railroad tracks.
Your cost of operation, just a ballpark figure, including your overhead annual?
I can do pretty well
Okay.
when it comes to ballpark. My April financials, I believe, showed a operating cost of $30.88 per hour.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Do we have future plans for more growth there, or?
We are to the point, we can almost always fit in everybody that calls, but we're to the point where we occasionally have to tell people that, I'm sorry, but we just don't have any more capacity. And so we are coming to a point where we are going to have to expand the services some more. And at that point, I will probably come back to the council and say, okay, this year I'd like a little bit more money to help fund some more transportation.
And maybe we do have this and I just don't realize it. Do we have a regular route that runs
Yes.
around Warrensburg where you can, at 1 o'clock, you know to be right here?
Yes.
And there should be a bus coming through?
At 1 o'clock, if you're sitting at Walmart, you should be able to get on the bus.
Okay. So-
We have what we call a deviated fixed route, which means that it runs basically on a route, but it will deviate off the route up to 3/4 of a mile to pick up somebody who cannot make it to the bus stop. But in addition to that, we have what we call demand response, and those are the other vehicles that are running here in town that are not on a route, but they're running door-to-door services. The deviated fixed route service is generally curb to curb.
Okay.
So any of that employees get paid, or is it all volunteer?
Every Oates employee is a paid employee. That being said, we do have volunteers. We have volunteers out in the counties that accept phone calls, and they will pass along that information to the office so that we can schedule trips. But all of our drivers and all of our office staff are paid employees.
So without the 15,000, where is your funding coming from?
Federal government subsidizes a significant amount of the other funding. We run, as I said before, we have Head Start routes. We have a senior center route. We do Medicaid under Logisticare and under MTM. We also have contracts with local nursing homes and other entities. And so some of the trips that we're doing are paid for by other entities that are operating here. But the fair share of what's paying for the service here is the federal government.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for inviting me to come in again. Next time, don't put me behind the guy that's so excited.
We have a representative from Pioneer Trails with us tonight. I think we might have had request in Pioneer Trails is requesting the same as last year as well, and that's $5,000. Tree Board representative.
Before you move off of that, Matthew, there's the offset of $10,000 from a grant. There was some report that that was not going to happen this year. Is that correct?
I'm not sure about that. From what I know, we receive a grant every year.
Yeah, I saw what was in the paper as well, and
Yeah.
so I think if they don't pursue the grant, which the deadline would have been beginning of
Correct.
June, so I felt like they were not pursuing it.
That's what I thought.
Then their expenses would go down as well.
Okay.
Because they're, the 10,000, the 10,000 from the grant was included in both expenses as well.
Okay, so their,
offset.
so their true expenses from the city would be 2,040.
That would be my best guess,
Okay.
yes.
All right, thank you.
Next will be the Warrensburg Arts Commission. I don't see Gary here, but I do have their request.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did it not make it in time for the packet? Thank you.
The dollar, Warrensburg Art Commission did not request, they did not request funding this year because of the surplus of funds that they currently have. If you notice, they're at around $33,000 right now, so they agreed to use the funding they had to pay for the events for this year.
Last year, that was 10,000.
Yes, it was 10,000 last year, yes.
It was about 3 years ago, I think, when, maybe even a little longer than that, when we approved that they were going to get a 0.5% of certain
Yes.
taxes. Have they ever received any of that? Is that, have they
Yes,
ever?
they received, when we installed the entrance sign, they received 1% of that. What you're talking about is a 1% for the arts.
Right.
And so they received 1% of the cost of the entrance sign.
Okay.
So the issue with that, as we read the language, is it was all above ground improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so basically building a building or something. So when we do a street project or road project, that is not an above ground improvement.
Right.
So when we spend money, say like building phase 2 of Veterans Road or phase 1 of Veterans Road, we don't consider that, according to the language, as an above ground improvement. So we don't set aside a 1% for the arts with those projects. But anytime you do something above ground, so the community sign, if we were to do an addition to City Hall, or we were to build a new fire station, those types of things would qualify for the 1% for the arts at that time. But we just haven't done any projects of that magnitude
Right.
here for the last few years.
That's all I was just wondering, because I couldn't think of any projects we did that they would have got it, the sign for. Okay.
It's a great question, because I think that's misunderstood a lot publicly.
Next would be depot renovation.
Ooh, oh, depot. I thought you said depot renovation.
Mayor and members of the council, I'm Brett Penrose. I'm the city's representative to the depot renovation board. I'm standing in tonight for Bill Vernier, who cannot be here. So I will give you a condensed version of his presentation. The depot renovation board provides the following services for the community: the Warrensburg Chamber of Commerce offices, the Amtrak passenger waiting and loading platform, the intercity bus service terminal, the Jackmore Community Meeting Room, and parking for downtown business district and city employees. With the city's continued investment, Dr. Maureen Alkire's endowment, and grants obtained from MoDOT and Amtrak, the board has invested nearly $90,000 over the past 8 years in maintenance and improvements for the depot. Significant investments in recent years include the replacement of the roof, renovation of the Jackmore Community Room, replacement of windows, restroom repairs, replacement of the threshold at the east entrance, repairing exterior lights, adding a dusk to dawn light for the flag, and replacement of lighting fixtures and ceiling tiles in the passenger waiting area. Two of the larger projects the board is now planning include removing the lead-based paint that is on the underside of the canopy and totally repainting that. The median price to complete this project is $28,500. The other project the board is in the planning stages is to make repairs and reseal the sandstone to protect the outside of the building for the future. The board has a current spendable reserve of $14,379.48. A budget projection is attached with your packet that would allow the board to solve the lead paint issue by 2022. The Board of Directors requests that the city continue to make a $5,500 annual investment in the depot. Do you have any questions? We must be doing something right. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I turned it off. It's a different phone.
Next we'll have Warrensburg Main Street.
Historical preservation.
Oh, I'm sorry, HPC. I'm sorry. Historic Preservation Commission. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right. I didn't bring my papers, all I brought was my phone, and so I may have to do this on you if I get into any of the details. Good evening, thank you for having this opportunity for us to come before you. My name is Karen Hicklin, and I am on the Historic Preservation Commission. We are asking for a slight increase this year, but that's because Warrensburg has such a vibrant and beautiful downtown, and we want to bring even more people to that area. Our plan is to receive, to have put in place a couple of signs on the exit ramps as people are coming into Highway 50 that would point to historic downtown Warrensburg. The initial period of time that those signs will be put in will be from October until June, and so it will cost $1,500 for those signs to be installed, and then in addition to that, the annual cost of that from July 1 of 2019 will be $2,000 a year. We are offsetting that a little bit this year because we've had some signs recently installed in downtown Warrensburg that identify the downtown as a historic area, and so obviously we don't need to replace those signs. We just want to continue on with providing good signage. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
I'm just curious, which downtown is considered historic downtown? Is it our current downtown, or is it the original downtown where the courthouse is and our historical?
It's the
museum?
current downtown, down around Holden and Pine Street.
I was just curious. Thanks.
And we have Main Street. Yes.
Hi. Thank you all so much for your time this evening. I'm pleased to be here to represent Main Street. It was approximately 10 years ago when I became acquainted with Warrensburg Main Street, and since that time I've served as a volunteer, attended many events as a participant, acted as a board and a committee member, and also now honored to be representing them as the executive director. So thank you, it's nice to see you all tonight. One of the things that always impressed me about Main Street and also the city of Warrensburg is how it was a collaborative effort between not only the city, but a group of volunteers and Main Street to come together to create events that would create a good community spirit and bring the community downtown for that revitalization. And that's why I got involved. One of those things that makes it such a privilege to be part of a dynamic group like this. The endeavors that we put forth are a catalyst not only for the betterment of the community and the quality of life that we have in Warrensburg, but also that of economic growth. That's why the partnership with the city is so important and also so very much appreciated. So we wanted to tell you all thank you for that, the continued support that you've given to us. As a board, we are looking forward to meeting with you all in August. At that meeting, in that work session, we hope to make sure that our focus is directed, that we're being very proactive to our next 3-5-year plan, and those initiatives continue to grow. So one of the things that you were provided with earlier this evening was a pamphlet that kind of goes over those projects that we've started together, the partnerships that we have with other organizations in the community, and Jason was going to discuss those with you.
Hi, Jason Elkins. I'm proud to say I'm a current board member of Warrensburg Main Street. And I'm joined tonight with several other board members and volunteers. And I'm just going to spend a little time, with the limited time that we have. If you look on the back of the brochure, you see a long list, and I won't go through all of them, but I do love an opportunity or a platform to be able to brag about some of the things that I think, when it comes down to talking about funding, the things that would be drivers, economic drivers in our downtown, that kind of can be seen more as dollars and dollars coming in, retail sales dollars coming in, and the support of our businesses in the downtown. And some of those, Sound of Summer series, a concert that we do several times a year throughout the summer. We see an increase in the feet on the ground in our downtown district for those. The Love Woods Local Restaurant Week, Dickens Christmas that we've gotten lots of accolades for over the years, the Christmas parade that we've added, our sidewalk sale, that's again one of the Love Woods Local programs, our First Friday Art Walk, that's ever increasing, Shop Small Saturday, Downtown Trick or Treat, that's one of those that we always like to say that brings 4,000 to 5,000 people in our downtown. Just a great opportunity for our businesses to showcase themselves. We have added a new one this year. In the past, we have tried to, as we've always asked about funding, we have had a reduction in our funding from the city of $10,000, and so we've concentrated on trying to make up that difference and not have to feel it. And we did feel it, and we have tried to add some new events that were also a fundraiser that we could generate a little income off of. That was the Farm to Table this year downtown by our courthouse, and it was what we feel is a great success and a very unique thing that we can provide. Bergfest, as everybody knows, is now kind of in our hands. We had a partnership with the Big Brother Big Sisters, but this year it'll be on our own, so it'll be very important for us to gather the troops and really try to pull off a great Bergfest this year. We're kind of redoing it somewhat. Farmers Market, we're very proud of. That's something that we started and have supported and managed over the years. And if anybody has the opportunity to go down there on Wednesdays or Saturdays, you'll see that it's a very neat environment to shop and support your local farmers. We did procure a grant this year that we're proud of, and we've got a couple of interns that are doing market research and some, farmers market research on numbers and what people want, and then actually marketing of the farmers market. We're also proud to say that we are bringing back the Incubator Space program, which is a little program that we like to do to encourage young entrepreneurs to have some reduced rent and some space that we have been provided upstairs where we're currently now above the Salvation Army building on Holden Street. So we have some extra space up there that now we're going to push for and be able to provide and support some entrepreneurs that we try to get started and kick-started maybe out of their garage or out of their home and into the downtown area or any area in town. So we're proud to say that. We've been wanting to do that for years, and we now see an opportunity, and our strength has allowed us to kind of push for that. Let's see, if you go on the other side, it's a couple more bragging points. I just want to take the opportunity to say some of the things that have changed in 2018, or since 2017, we've added 3 new businesses. We've added 2 changes of ownership, so that's, for the better. The downtown relocation, the Bombshells, and we have a quote from them. If you'll see, they have quoted saying, "Our sales are up 40% right after our relocation to downtown." So they're down at 209 North Holden. They're very happy with their move. We're proud to have them. 4 businesses have expanded, and we've created what we feel is 14 new jobs that's been reported. So again, all positive and all things that are increasing in our downtown. And then our state program, it's the state arm of our national program. They have a model, and this, if you look over here at the middle of our other side there, it'll talk about what they say is what they like to say is the model for how a city would fund and help contribute to a Main Street program. So of the 135 Main Street affiliates in our state, we are one of 7 that are accredited. So that does give us a little bit of accreditation to, or credibility to how we're operating our, if it was ever in question is how does Main Street operate in comparison to other Main Streets in our downtown, or in our state, we are one of 7 that are actually rose to a national level of accreditation. The national arm comes down and they actually, they do an accreditation visit, and we meet that every year, and we're very proud of that in our organization. But their model says that a third, and a third is where you, how you generate your money, and 1/3 of that would be from fundraising, a third from events, and then a third from the city or your municipality. And when we look at our current budget, which we've increased every year, when we look at it, it's 27% currently with the city's contribution. So 33% would be, and if we want to compare to Washington, Chillicothe, or Liberty, their city funds them about 33% of their total budget for the year. So we're proud to say that we're at 27, 25% if you were to remove the contribution from BurkFest. So, and then if you look over here, we have currently are showing $1.777 million worth of reinvestment dollars into our downtown over the past year. So that's showing a nice advancement there. And then we've increased our funding and our fundraising from 2016 to 2017. We're slowly moving to be stronger, more self-sufficient, and we've also chose to renovate our upstairs of our current buildings that we own on Holden Street, and that's helping be a driver for our fundraising as well. So we've relocated, and we've actually started renting out some more space there, and so we're proud to say that. So, and then you can just see some board volunteer hours. We like to showcase those things. So we just would encourage you to look over this and just kind of let us brag a little more into your own free time, So and we appreciate the opportunity to be able to be up here and be able to answer any questions if you have them.
And ask one, UCM, do they still, in their budget, give you all money, Main Street? Because I think they did in the past. Did they cut that a little bit?
Yeah, and I can't speak to that. I can't speak to exactly what it is for this year or even last year, but yes, we have been, it has changed over the years, and I wish I could tell. I mean, in August, we'll definitely can review those things.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. That'd be great.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
we'll have those.
They're still funding.
They are
Yeah,
funding,
they're still
yeah.
funding. I was just
Yes.
curious of what, I mean, obviously everything's getting less money.
Yes.
At UCM, so I was just
I
curious.
do know in the past that when they were getting cuts, they've actually kept our contribution pretty strong, and I think that's a testament to how they feel about how important we are.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I just realized I look like a giant next to Jason. I'm so sorry. I was standing here and I was like, oh my goodness. But
I'm used to it. All right. Well, thank you.
all so
Thank
much.
you.
You'll have a great evening.
Thanks.
Last but not least, Whiteman Area Leadership Council representative.
I'm back.
Different hat.
So Whiteman Area Leadership Council, they are an organization that strives to be an external support system for Whiteman Air Force Base and the military personnel and their families. For those that aren't aware, we have a new website. It's called supportwhiteman.com. We just rolled that out a couple of months ago. We have a couple of folks that have attended ADC, the Association of Defense Communities conferences. We are very much engaged with the military advocate, Missouri military advocate at the state level. And in fact, we have several people that are going to be attending the Impact Commission meetings and going down to the Sustain Ozarks Partnership, which is Joe Driscoll's, the Missouri Military Advocate's former place of work. So we have lots of things going on, including a a plan to do some strategic planning and joint session with the base community council, which I think has been something that we've been wanting to do for a couple of years now. So the ask currently has been $3,000. That would be appreciated if that could continue into next year. And unless you have any questions, I hope I can answer. Anything else?
Okay.
Harold is on that board, so thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, up next, we have first and second reading of the ordinance. Suspension of open container for summer concert series. An ordinance suspending the provisions of section 3-14 for certain special events, August 24th, 2018, pursuant to section 3-14B of the Code of Ordinances.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Main Street has submitted their request and plan for their outdoor summer concert on Pine Street on August 24th. They are asking in connection with this event that the open container ordinance be suspended between the hours of 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. As a sponsoring organization, they will be coordinating volunteers and ensuring that during the event that people are checked for being over the age of 21 and issued a wristband so they can come into the Pine Street area, and the bars will be able to sell alcohol outside of their establishments during that time frame as well. We are recommending approval of the ordinance as submitted.
Will they be grouped in one, or are they going to be separate, each one of the ordinances? On
I'm sorry.
each request, is that going to be separate, or can we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there more than one?
Yeah, there's just one.
There's only one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
historically, when they've had other events planned, they've brought those back with a separate application. You could approve them all at once, but
Okay.
you could
They were not
Because they're
ready.
different dates, right?
This is the last one of the year. They weren't ready when they had their June 1 to do this one at that time. They had some plans to do pub crawl, and so we had to meet and discuss if that was going to affect this. It's not, because the pub crawl is not going to involve alcohol coming out of the bars. They'll just take empty cups out, so it doesn't affect the concert. So this is just for Pine Street, just like the one in June that you just approved. And then the other one's in front of the courthouse, and there's not an open container for that one.
Did we do one for Birdfest? Do you have to do that every year?
We do if they're on the street. Last year, they were in a parking lot, and so it didn't have to be done. They had a beer tent in a parking lot, so that didn't require a suspension of the open.
Move to pass that ordinance to second reading by title?
Jacobs?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Johnston?
Yes.
This is an ordinance suspending the provisions of section 3-14 for certain special events, August 24th, 2018, pursuant to section 3-14B of the Code of Ordinances. This is for adoption or rejection. Jacobs?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Johnston?
Yes. Okay, we have remove revenue offset for electronic control device purchases, an ordinance amending ordinance 5365 concerning the adopted fiscal year 18 annual budget for the general fund.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, in this year's budget, you approved $7,000 for the purchase of TASER electronic control devices. It was in the budget with the revenue offset, with the understanding that we were going to try and pursue some grant funding for those. We've been exploring grants all year and have not been able to locate a program that would do that for us. And after discussions with the city manager and the finance director, they feel like at this time we can go ahead and remove the revenue offset, which would allow us to purchase the tasers in this budget year. It's a 5-year plan, so it's $7,000 a year for the next 5 years. So we're going to have to work out with Doug and with their attorneys the clause to ensure that if funding isn't available, that we're able to return the equipment without any penalty. So we're asking that you approve removing the revenue offset, and then we're going to work out the legal details with TASER before we purchase the equipment.
So will this come to the council every year, you think, with a different council, since you said 5 years?
It would just be built into the budget. from this point forward. There is in the contract wording a provision if you return the equipment within 30 days of not being funded, that you're not charged a penalty. So again, we're working with Taser's lawyers and with Doug to ensure that that's at a level that's written so that it will protect the city from having to encumber all of the money at once.
So 7,000 times the 5, then you're done? You own
Then
it?
we own it, right.
Would you get the
Bottom line.
tasers now, or do you have to wait?
We would get them, I mean, we wouldn't get them tomorrow. We've got policy to write, we've got some, as I mentioned, some legal work to do with Doug, and then we'll be able to purchase them. So I would anticipate the policies being finished up and sent to me for review. We'll have Doug review that, and then we'll get some input from Harold and also from some community members as well. And then once that's approved, then we'll go ahead and make the purchase. We have one officer right now who is a trainer. There's an officer at the Sheriff's Department who will help train. I've got another officer who's going to be trained in October of this year.
I'm sure you guys have explored it, but any options for co-op buys on any of this equipment?
Not for tasers. It's really the same thing with grant funding. It's just not a purchase that most grants are written for right now.
Right.
The biggest driver on grants right now is for body cameras. The drawback for that is, the last one I looked at, you had to buy 150 of them. So they're really going toward the larger departments.
Right.
They encourage cooperative buying for that.
Right.
But I don't have 150
Right.
cameras, right? I can't, there's not enough agencies in Johnson County to buy 150 cameras
Right.
to even do that for us. So
Okay.
this is just one of those pieces of equipment. Right now, everybody's got it. And so there's not a lot of grants to procure it because people have already purchased them.
So obviously currently now, we do not have the tasers?
No, we do not. And I think it's important to point out, this is a very important intermediate weapon for the officers to use if you've got a combative subject. Right now, my officers can go from a striking instrument, a baton, to handgun. That's it. There's nothing in between. So if you're dealing with a person who is under the influence of PCP, somebody who's not going to be subjected to pain control with the baton, or even a wrist lock or another type of control technique, there's no other intermediate weapon. We can do an OC spray, but that doesn't affect people if they're not feeling any pain. Taser has been shown to be effective against people who do are under the influence of narcotics and who can resist the pain instruments like an OC spray or a baton strike. One of the issues too that's come up, it's been reported that there were deaths caused by taser. Most of the time in those situations, the person's been tased multiple times. Usually we're talking 10, 15 times. I directed the officer who's writing our policy to limit it to 3 cycles of the taser. It's a reasonable amount to ensure that it's going to control somebody. And my philosophy is if you can't control somebody with any technique after applying it 3 times, you need to switch to another technique. So we're going to be on the conservative side with how often, when we can deploy it. Somebody's going to have to be actively resistant, which means they're putting up a fight. They're aggressively assaulting you or somebody else. And then we're going to limit the number of times we can cycle the taser once we're done.
And how many will that purchase?
Right now, it depends on how we do it. There's 2 plans. There's a basic plan and there's an unlimited plan. With the unlimited plan, we can get 12, and that will mean that at the most I'll have 6 officers on shift at a time. So each officer on shift would have 1, and then I have 6 in reserve. Or if we had a big event, I could equip up to 12 officers. There's another plan that's the basic plan that doesn't include as much stuff, and I might be able to get a few more. So that's part of the reason why I don't have an exact number for that for you tonight, because we're trying to figure out how to get the best bang for our buck with what we have.
Just need a motion. Move to approve.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Johnston?
Yes.
This is an ordinance amending ordinance 5365 concerning the adopted fiscal year 18 annual budget for the general fund. This is for adoption or rejection. Jacobs?
Yes.
Excuse me. Lund?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Johnston?
Yes. Okay, moving on to other business. We have Local 3923 letter of support presented by Local Union 3923 representatives.
Members of the council, my name is Darrell Smithson. I'm the president of the Local 3923 Professional Firefighters Union. This is Terry Hill. He's vice president. He's also a representative on the Wage and Benefit Committee for us. the members of our union voted for us to come before you to offer a letter of support. I would like for Mr. Hill to read that for us.
Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, on behalf of the Warrensburg Professional Firefighters Local 3923, I'm speaking to show support of the proposed compensation and benefit study presented by the Austin Peters Group. The Austin Peters Group was enlisted to review the present pay plan and to view the possibility of creating a more equitable market value pay structure for current and future employees of the City of Warrensburg. At the start of the process, our members were included through excellent communications from the Austin Peters Group and the inclusion of our representative on the Wage and Benefit Committee, which was granted by City Manager Harold Stewart. The goals that were identified by the Council and City Administration regarding this project were to evaluate the positions, pay grades, market adjustments that might be necessary to create a more competitive market for the City of Warrensburg that would promote retaining current valued employees, recruitment of future quality employees, provide means to reduce the loss of vested employees. We believe the proposed compensation plan has made a positive advancement in meeting those goals while providing an excellent new start in giving our administration the tools necessary to meet the needs of our members and fellow employees. We wish to thank the City Council, City Manager Harold Stewart, HR Director Greg McCullough, Finance Director Matthew Liu, and the department heads, along with the Wage and Benefit Committee members for their dedication and commitment to this effort. We encourage City Council to adopt and approve the compensation plan as presented, along with a commitment to enable the City Manager and his staff to reassess the compensation plan each year to make the positive adjustments necessary to keep the plan moving in a forward direction by supporting the changes which make Warrensburg a leader in recognizing the value dedicated employees provide in creating an outstanding community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have the appointment of an acting city clerk.
This is just a request to have someone that's able to do my job when I'm not here. So, in the past, we've had a resolution to approve it. So, I would like to recommend Carrie West. I did state that she was Carrie Smith. That's her former name, so I excuse the problem with the name. But anyway, I think she's worked for the city now for about, 8 years? 8 to 10 years. Pretty long. Anyway, I think she would do a good job of filling in what I'm doing. So, anyway.
Okay.
Do y'all have any questions?
No.
Okay, yeah, I just need a
Move to
motion.
approve.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Johnston?
Yes. Okay, we have financial management policy update, a resolution updating the financial management policies, operating expenditure policy.
Mayor, members of the City Council, what you have before you is a proposed revision to the city's operating expenditure policy. Currently, the policy states that current operating expenditures will not exceed current operating revenues. What this statement does not allow for is for the use of any surplus funds from year to year. It also compounds the surplus funds that we may have at any given time. What staff has been discussing is a policy that allows us to be able to use 50% of the unrestricted reserves to balance the budget at any given year. Currently, the projected unrestricted reserve for fiscal year 19 is around $900,000. And so this would allow staff to use about $450,000 to help to balance the budget. There is a state statute, which is 67.030, that states that in no event shall the total authorized expenditures from any fund exceed the estimated revenues to be received plus any unencumbered balance, or less any deficit estimated for the beginning of the budget year, which basically is saying that you will be able to use that balance that is unrestricted to balance the budget for current year. So that is any money that is above the restricted reserve or restricted in any other kind of way, less a deficit that you may have. Any questions on this week? Staffman, we've had more than one discussion about this. It's a topic that continues to come up.
So it's something that'll help you a little bit with the budget too?
Yes, so currently we have to balance, so whatever we are projecting as revenues, we cannot over-project expenses for that amount. What this will do is allow us to use a little bit of that reserve to budget for those expenses. So now really it's like staff is being penalized when you go under budget. So if we have a budget of $10 million, but we only spend $9 million of that extra million will go into the unrestricted reserve, but we have no way to budget to spend that money unless we come to council and do some sort of amendment.
The other thing that does then is it not only levels out the budgeting process, compensates for the highs and the lows, as was explained to me, but it also discourages spending by departments that made at the end of a budget year,
yes,
which is, I think, an important part of it too.
And I think it helps us to be better stewards of the money.
Yes.
It is important to have an unrestricted balance, but I don't think we are being good stewards of the city's money if we just keep adding on to that balance and adding on and never spending it.
And this is separate and apart from the restricted balance, which is 18%?
22%.
Right now we have a restricted reserve balance of 22%. State recommends 18, so we're above that by 4% already.
Yeah.
So this is a separate reserve, and this is state law, as you read, allows us to use unrestricted reserves to balance our annual budget. But the city has imposed its own policy that's restricted that, which was good to help build the unrestricted reserve for a period of time. But now we're at a point that we have no ability to access it or use that according to policy. So what we're asking now is, now we've built a good unrestricted reserve, now we're asking to help us out in some of these lean years, especially in a year like now. We just had the wage and benefit committee presentation where we're adding a significant amount of cost in there, and we're asking to use that money to provide us some time and create some wiggle room until the revenues kind of balance out and catch up with that a little bit. Our goal isn't always to spend more money than what's coming in, but there are some years that unrestricted reserves helps you balance that out and buy some time. But right now, policy does not allow us to do that.
And this is not something that would be ongoing. If we approve a 50% this year, you'd have to come back to the council.
Council always has the ultimate authority of what the budget is. So like this year, we're going through the budget process. Every year, we take you through the budget process, and you're going to balance the budget. So every year, the council has the ability to direct staff, no, this year we're going to balance revenues to expenses. We're not going to approve to go into unrestricted reserves to do that this year. Council always has the final say in that vote. But right now, and that's the directive staff has been working on for the last several years, is always balancing expenses to the projected revenues. This year, we're having difficulty doing that, and because of that policy, we can't use that unrestricted reserve to basically create some leeway in there for us. And so we're asking that policy to be changed. But even with the council changing that policy, every year you're going to review that.
Right.
You're going to have the ability to say, yes, we're willing to use that much unrestricted reserve or not. Or staff need to go back and cut some more money out because we don't want to use that much money of our unrestricted reserve. Council always has the final say in that.
I'd also like to say that I'd like to thank previous councils for placing those restrictions and allowing us to build the cushion that we currently are operating on. So I think it's important to give them a kudo for that. We thank you.
And one note to mention is that in fiscal year 19, we're planning on we're estimating around $10,050,000 in revenue, and so far as of today, we have about $10,300,000 in expenses. To kind of compare, last year we budgeted $10,400,000 in expenses. So we've actually cut expenses from last year to this year, but we need some way to make up that deficit.
Move to approve the resolution?
Jacobs?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Johnston?
Yes. All right, appearances to the council not listed on the agenda. None? Okay. All right, so since we do not have any of those, we'll do mayoral appointments. I do have a lot of those. Okay, these are my first ones, Cindy, so tell me
Okay.
if I do anything wrong here.
Okay. Okay, I'm paying attention.
Okay, to the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Task Force. I'd like to appoint Elaine Sepulveda.
Okay.
To the Historic Preservation Committee, I would like to appoint Patricia Smith. To Children's Memorial Fund, Ramona Conant, Katie Downey, Alex McNeil, and Linda North. I know I'm talking really fast for you, sorry. To Parks and Recreation Board, Cindy Holmberg and Will Wilkins. And to WCVB, Cliff Gower, Jenny McTighe, and Diane Whitworth.
So with those said, once we approve them, will someone let some of the ones know to go off when they go off, and then some will know?
Yes,
Okay.
I mentioned, well, I think I mentioned to Harold and to Danielle, over the weekend, we've been getting more and more applicants for the park board that don't live in the city limits.
Right.
So I believe they need to be notified, so
Mhm.
I can let these other people know too.
Sounds good. And then we can reach out as well to the, well, Ryan, now you know, you got two. So the board
Current
presidents
ones,
and
yeah.
kind of let them know as well that they'll have some
Right.
new members.
I think we were three and we were going three in the hole on park board. And then didn't we lose one because she's outside the city limits now? So we're four in the hole now. So we replaced two.
No, I think we're
Officially, I think we're only down
we're only
three.
two. I think we're, well, you pointed two,
But
and we
Gates-
did three.
Right,
Gates
we're
moved
only
outside
down
the city
one.
limits. And she was already on there. I don't think she was coming off, was she?
No, she was not coming off, but I think we need one more for the three, and then Gates will have to be replaced.
So two, right?
Yeah, so I believe there's two. Yeah. Does that sound right, Danielle?
I mean, I know, is that something we may want to look at as far as the park board? I mean, I know the ordinance we wrote requires them to be in the city limits. Is that something we may want to look at going into the future because people with a Warrensburg address are using our parks and stuff?
I think the hard part is if they do anything that involves tax dollars, they
True.
don't pay the tax dollars.
Right, that's true.
That's been one.
That's the whole,
That's the whole inside the city limits.
right,
thing
and if
now.
they can't,
I
they can't.
agree with you, Brian, because we're, it's tough to get volunteers,
Mm-hmm.
But yet they're not
Yeah,
voting
they're not.
for it.
I've kind of thought about that too, but
Yeah, me too.
ultimately that's like us raising sewer rates, but then we don't care because we don't live outside city limit, or in city limits. So I think that standard is a good one to keep if we just need to continue recruiting some good people. I think those are two really good, people who would do well on there.
Well, and I think we need to probably add that to the application too, is are you a resident?
If you live inside
I've
city
requested
limits.
that change to get out of the.
Have you? Okay.
Same with our
Yeah.
renters though, that go for these big bonds and they pay rent. Yeah, ultimately, probably the rent's gonna be raised, but they're not
Right.
thinking of that when they're doing it. As homeowners think of that, so,
Mm-hmm.
do you cut the renters not to vote? But, I get it.
Well, I will publicly say I really like the influx of applications and the participation and the excitement of people, their enthusiasm to participate on these boards. So
Well, and I'm not gonna say the public doesn't know about some of them, but I think more advertising when someone's talking on KOKO or something, or maybe something in the paper about, you know, you live outside the city limits, it'd be great for you to maybe get on one of these boards, and here's the application online, you know.
I like it.
Yeah. Because I never knew it when I was not even on council. I didn't know we had those kind of boards.
Well, we did try to, we put that out to the public, and I thought that KOKO especially did a really good
That's
job
good.
of reminding people, so.
Perfect.
Another good place to look for potentials is those that participate in climb.
That's true.
They've indicated
Yeah.
they're looking at being future leaders,
Mhm.
so letting them know the opportunities for boards and commissions with the city is a great opportunity for them to have once they've completed that.
I know I met with the YPNs on a regular basis and kind of told them, hey, you know, you guys want to step into these roles. I'm glad to see Will has taken one of those positions.
Yep.
on.
Is that something we could look at putting, I don't know if it's already in there, openings in the chamber flash?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I would bet a lot of the business owners would be, or, you know, doesn't it go to the schools as well?
It does.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Very good.
Well, I
We
think
need
it's,
a motion to approve the slate, is that what?
Uh-huh.
So moved.
Jacobs,
yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes. Okay, miscellaneous matters from the mayor and or city council.
I have something with this list that we've had today. Are you all going to, I remember when I first got on the board, when folks were coming to us, and I think there's 13 of them, that you recommended cutting it somewhere? Are you gonna just slide this in? Do we talk about it, of who we want to fund, not? Remember?
If you
I don't know if you were here.
If you have any wishes for funding or not funding, maybe we can put something on the agenda to talk about that again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how any else one fills, and so I'm obviously I can call each one of them individually or something and talk to them about it. But, you know, I know at one time, and I don't know if Brian was on the council, staff had it where it cut it at that certain point, and then we approved it all or something, and then last year it was just put in same as what. I mean, one example, nothing against Big Brother and Big Sister, but Stormy Taylor's not here anymore, and I love what's local, and all this $5,600 goes to corporate, and then they may dole it out to us. You know, I'm not saying don't give them $5,600, but for me, I mean, I don't know how you all feel. That's just one example of 13 of them. I was just wondering, at some time we will talk about it when it gets to budget time.
We can definitely do that. We can
Not that I'm
talk.
not supportive of it. I don't want to publicly say I'm not supportive of it. I am.
Don't write that, Sue.
I am supportive, but
We can either have it on a meeting before the budget, or we can do it on the same night that we approve, or do the first reading of the budget. We can do it either way you guys want to do it.
yeah. I was just curious of how the other council feels. You know, obviously, everybody really doesn't want to be dogged in public when you say that, why give them, you know what I mean? But it's
I
up
think
to
the
you guys.
discussion itself is
I
important.
think
Yeah.
the discussion is important.
I think as we schedule future budget conversations, that is definitely something you can talk about.
Mhm.
At this point, though, especially with the action that council took previously, allowing us to use unrestricted reserves to carry us from year to year, I think at this point, staff will build into the budget basically the same as what was budgeted for those organizations last year. But that doesn't prohibit the council that if you want to discuss that and make changes to that, you have the ability to do that at future budget
I would
discussions.
kind of like to have a round table and talk about, you know, because it gets pretty thick and we really don't discuss a lot about the budget. We're like move to approve type thing, so we could have some meetings up to that point. That'd be great. That's all I had. Sorry, go ahead.
Any other miscellaneous matters?
I just want to say real quick that I am extremely happy to see the tasers in the budget. I think when we hired you, I went to you and says, "Where's those tasers at?" You know.
My hesitation with that was I really don't like tasers, but I do understand. I do work for the city, and the city, it is best for them to probably have that tool for your officers. So I just want you to know that was my hesitation. I was not going to say no. I'm just like,
Properly managed, I think it'll
yes,
do.
I think so too. Property management would be very.
I know 3 years ago it was voted down, and
Yes.
the argument voted down didn't make any sense to me at all. I'll give you a gun, but I won't give you a taser. You know? So.
I was on the council when we did, though. I mean, I really don't like tasers, but it's okay. It's just my personal, so I said yes.
Somebody hit you with one once?
Yeah, okay.
Watching on TV.
I wouldn't like them either.
Don't do that
All right. City managers report.
I guess first of all, I want to thank all of my staff for the great work they did on the wage and benefits study. All the way down, we had participation at all levels, and I think that helped with a quality report. And look forward, and I appreciate the council's support in making that investment into our employees and our organization. I think that's an important investment, and especially my department heads. I want to thank them for working hard to balance the budget to include that. It has not been easy this year, and we're forgoing a lot of other purchases and other things that are probably needed, but this was of a higher priority. So I just want to publicly thank them for that, as well as use the council for supporting that. The only other thing I have is just a reminder that I will not be in attendance at the next council meeting. Some personal time off. That's scheduled on my wife's side of the family that I can't schedule, so.
All right. Director of Finance.
I did want to mention about the option that we have now to tax on our vendors. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read the email that was sent out, but I think that is a really important thing for us moving forward, kind of level the playing field for some of our brick and mortar stores here in town.
Have we have any, I know that email just went out about a week ago, but have we had any conversations with the representative and the senator on how we are moving forward to get that money where it belongs?
Well, as with most of those types of changes, we're going to wait until the state legislature figures out how they're going to interpret that, what they're going to do with that, and what authorities, if any, they're going to give local governments.
Yeah.
It's still making it kind of hard to budget though, because it isn't.
I've found from experience that if we don't start kicking, they don't start moving, so.
There was some conversation initiated last night, in fact.
Was there?
Yeah. On that very subject.
Good. So I have not ran into him to initiate my side of that conversation, but I will when I meet him again. So.
Okay. Barb? Randy?
Mayor, members of the council, last year the WCCC and you all had a joint meeting. If it is your pleasure, I will work with Cindy to get a meeting scheduled, an upcoming meeting scheduled. That'll allow us to discuss the annual report that was presented in your packet tonight, and then our 5-10-year plan, where the WCBB is going. The council sees us in those plans as well.
Do your bylaws require a meeting or a presentation, or does it specify?
It does not specify. It specifies that we will provide you an annual report by June 15th. That is the only thing that is mentioned in our bylaws for the ordinance.
Okay.
Traditionally, we did have them do a presentation, but last year, council wanted to have a more hands-on conversation with the board, and so last year we did do a joint council board meeting.
I like the round table.
And that was appreciated, and so we assume that you would want to do.
I'd like to do that again personally.
And so we did provide you the annual report so they meet the obligations of their contract with the city, but saving the bulk of the conversation for that joint meeting. And so she's just asking for permission to be able to schedule that, make sure that you still want to do that this year, so she can work with Cindy and figure out what works best with your schedules and her board to do that.
I know you're going to be gone July 9th, and I know Brian made a comment about it's easy on Mondays.
Yeah, I'm not going July 9th.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
No.
That's when you're back.
I'll be back July 9th. No, I'm leaving the 3rd. I'll be back on the 8th. So I'm available.
I was just saying, sometimes we do some closed sessions, like for an hour from 6 to 7 or 6:30 to 7:30, before the council on Monday. So we already know we're going to be here on Monday.
Sure.
Some of us surely can maybe sneak out of work a little early or something to be here. That's just a suggestion on everybody else.
Pretty tough for me to
I
sneak
know.
out.
Yeah.
I don't know their board or what their schedules are, so that's just like.
Sure, that sounds really good, doing it prior to the council meeting. I would like to do it to the 2nd July meeting, because our annual meeting is July 14th, and that'll allow us to have a new officer slate, committee slate, and then we can have the joint meeting with you all that following.
Okay.
July 14th.
Traditionally, we did have them do a presentation, but last year, council wanted to have a more hands-on conversation with the board and so last year we did do a joint council board meeting. And that was appreciated, and so we assume that you would want to do a presentation.
Do your bylaws require a meeting
The first meeting, July 9th, wouldn't work because you've got planning commission at 5:30.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
takes 2.
I was thinking somebody was gonna be gone, but I guess not, never mind. Maybe it was just you.
She's gonna be
The
gone.
second one on the
Second
23rd,
meeting.
I can't be here any earlier than 7.
I have an invitation or something.
And then we were talking, I haven't heard back from Main Street about a possible meeting.
Yeah, that's what I had an invitation.
Yeah, and I haven't heard back
We're
from
scheduling
Crystal.
that for August.
Okay.
Yeah, that was gonna be the first meeting in August, I think.
So I mean, we could always try August 13th.
Well, wait a minute, I'm out of town in August for a few days. Let me look
When
at my
are you
calendar
gone
here.
in August?
We can send out a questionnaire and just have everyone respond their
That'd be great.
availability.
Yeah.
And then we'll do that with the WC.
Okay, that's fine.
That'd be great.
I'll miss the first meeting in August as well.
Okay.
I'm leaving the 16th of August, and I will get back the 22nd of August. So
You
I'll
might
be gone
give
the
several
16th to the
options
26th.
in there.
Because we may not be able to get everybody. but-
I try to plan as much as possible to be available on those Mondays. I think I missed one because I couldn't get back from Vegas, but.
I have a question, and I'm sorry to butt in, but we read the first reading of the budget will be the first meeting in August. Since we'll have a few of you out, do you want to do something different?
So the 13th, that's the first meeting
I'll be
in
here for
August
that.
that you
I'll be
will-
here. Who's gonna be out?
Oh, okay, just.
Oh, you're out? Okay.
I'll be in Alaska.
I'm here.
I'm here.
You'll be in
Okay,
Alaska.
so
That's
just
cool.
one. Okay.
Can do a conference call, right, from Alaska?
Sure.
Yeah, I think the order doesn't allow that.
I thought it was gonna be 2 of you, so, okay.
And it is just the first reading. It's
It's
not
just
approving
first.
Right,
stuff
it's the
yet,
first,
but-
but,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, thank you, Marcy. Danielle?
I just have one thing. If you're in town for the 4th of July, make sure to join us for Freedom Fest. We'll start with 5K at 8 in the morning, it'll be downtown. And if you're not inclined to run or walk, we do need volunteers. And then we'll have the parade at 9 o'clock after that. And then you can join us from 1 to 5 for half price swim at Nassau. And then at Grover Park, starting at 6:30 on, we'll have events and the community band will perform, and then fireworks at the end of the night.
Thank you.
Who do we see for volunteers?
I'm sorry.
Who do we see for volunteers? Just come over.
That would be great. I can handle that.
Okay. All right.
Joe? No?
Thursday night, between 8 and 11, the next truck will be in. They're leaving in the morning at 3 o'clock to go get it.
All right.
I'm not going this time.
Who dragged that so strong?
Doyle's gonna lead the parade.
I wanted to publicly thank Wendy's. They had a fundraiser for us this past week, and 30% of the sales for the day went to the PD. We raised $800 to go towards our AED fundraising plan, and we have another one scheduled. They're doing some renovation upcoming, so we don't have an exact date for that, but that should put us over the top for our third AED. And then we also are going to have an ice cream with a cop planned. So we'll be able to have the kids come out, and well, of course the adults can too, get some ice cream at Wendy's, so that'll be good. And I want to thank you all for showing up at our swearing in. The officers really appreciated seeing you all there, and it was a very nice ceremony, so thank you all for attending.
I remember when the Legion tried to buy a couple of those, they were running about $1,500 a piece.
We've got a price at $1,200.
Okay.
So we've gotten 2 so far, fully paid. We're getting a third from the hospital. They've got a 2-year-old model they're going to give us that they have from one of their closed clinics. So we've got a photo op scheduled with them to take that donation on. So we're moving forward. Yeah, it's been really nice. It's good support.
Jim, you want to give some kudos to the young lady that...
Oh, yeah, I did. Angela Hemphill, Adlick, the Girl Scout that was doing a fundraiser and also for her Gold Award for the Girl Scouts put on, has done an awesome job in fundraising towards the fire extinguisher trainer. Some of you there the other night at the spaghetti dinner, she was able to raise about $2,000 over cost for the dinner, and she's raised a little over $5,000 towards the project. That's the first half of her project where she's done this. The second half of her project, she's going to spend all her waking moments in the week of Fire Prevention Week to help demo it and go on fire prevention stuff for the Girl Scouts, or for this award, the Gold Award for the Girl Scouts. I had to do some research because I wasn't real sure about it. It's every bit as much as the Eagle Scout Award. They had a membership from the Mid-Continent Council of Girl Scouts there the other night, observing everything and talking to people to see how she did, and she has done a kick-butt job on it.
Yep.
Very good. Done? Brian? Robin? All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming, getting out before 9.
I know.
All ready? Does it have to be loud?
No, blue's fine.
As usual, I look forward to your refreshments.
You wrote that out. Do you want me to identify them in the pictures? I can do some of that.
I don't know what I did with it.
I might need your one card. I know.
Okay, see ya.
Hope you get to feeling better.
Yeah.
I got them all. I got 30 minutes reserved, so we'll set there. Got that taken care of. I've got American Legion commanders coming in. American Legion commanders coming in. The Missouri State Commission coming in.
Shorter, probably the shortest one out there, dark hair. If you want to get your picture off.
One of the commissioners will come in.
Well, we'll probably miss the first game of the college girls.
His daughter's done some. I think he did.
Unless they're next meeting for Warrensburg.
Actually did Waters to West with Major Carlson.
That's why I've been trying to get all
Yeah,
these
the
years,
water, and you
because
have to learn.
I wanted to give these kids a taste of state, but they've been good enough to win it. So I want to give them a taste this way.
I'm gonna work that Thursday. I have to do some orientation. But I will be here before 10:30, and I will closing after 1 o'clock. Hand out welcome bags, whatever
Most
you
of the
want.
games will be, Thursday's games and Friday's games will be guaranteed. Saturday's games will be
The old one, oh yeah,
Sunday is a rain
Oh,
day,
no.
so
Front-
Sunday's
always
always a rain
Wednesday,
day.
Okay, so I will get you
front
guys
bowl.
on
Can't find one for less than
Friday.
$200
I won't be able to be there on
and it's
Saturday,
all used.
but I will be because I got plans.
But once we get to Saturday,